Well, welcome back to 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse and a little late night noir again. I was watching two films basically from one year, 1953. And those films were The Wild One and Port Sinister. Now, The Wild One, as most people know, starred Marlon Brando, and it was based on an incident in Hollister, California, which was the start of the whole biker phenomenon. It was some kind of rape on the beach or something like that. But whoever made this film took that story and decided to make it into a movie starring Marlon Brando. And we get a lot of brooding Marlon Brando, walking around and acting or method acting or whatever the fuck he thinks he's doing. But you know who livens up the whole fucking film and makes it worthwhile watching? Lee Marvin, that's who, because according to what I read about Lee really didn't like fucking Marlon Brando at all. Sort of hated his acting. And Lee was Chino, the rival biker leader, who has a little fight with Marlon in one instance and pretty much gets taken off to jail and whatever. But his scene livens up the whole movie. Also on the sidelines is an uncredited Timothy Carey throwing water in both their faces. At the end of the film, you'll see Timothy Carey again as the two bikers that actually got arrested and are put in a squad car. It's a typical story. The bikers are welcome in the town as long as they're spending money, but all of a sudden it gets out of hand, and the merchants are raking it in until it gets out of hand, and then something happens and one guy is killed and, it's all fucked up. But that was the first actual biker film, and like I said, Lee Marvin really did not fucking like Marlon Brando. And Lee Marvin wore a striped shirt, which Hell's Angel, Terry the Tramp was his name, went and bought it and wore it. And I believe he wore it in the movie Hell's Angel 69, which he was actually credited as a star in that one. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us either. But yeah, The Wild One's sort of a time capsule, and it's worth a look just for Lee Marvin because Lee is chewing scenery as only Lee can do. And the other one is this film called Port Sinister, which I remember I told you about that thing in the big show that was on Channel 7 at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon where they had war films one day and monster films the next day and western whatever what I'm talking about. Well, on the Monster Day one time they had this film called Port Sinister. And Port Sinister is actually Port Royal, an island that rises out of the sea every 200 years. And it was a place where pirates stashed their treasure. And it's also of scientific interest to a guy played by James Warren, not the James Warren you're thinking of, but some actor named James Warren, who was a scientist who was all set to go out on an expedition, but is waylaid by the bad guy, Paul Cavanaugh, with the little snidely whiplash mustache here. This little pencil-thin fucking mustache. I don't know why guys did this, because it looks like a fucking dead caterpillar on the tip of your lip. But anyway, he's the bad guy. He ambushes the guy, the scientist in his hotel room, steals his identity, and he's in the hospital where he commandeers the ship and the scientist girl and goes out to find Port Royal. Well, Port Royal has a unique monster, a giant crab. Of course, in the synopsis they say giant crabs plural, but there's one fucking crab, and he's a marionette. There's somebody standing up, making this fucking crab wiggle. And of course, everybody's sufficiently horrified when they're killed and shit, and then the crab is dispatched by 2 bullets. Well, there's a lot of weird shit going on because the scientist finally charters a plane to go out there and get to the island and save his girl. But then the plane craps out and they're basically floating in the water until they come to the island. And now they're all playing backstabbing with the treasure. And the only star I recognized was William Shallert from the Patty Duke Show and a bunch of other stuff. And he's a bad guy too, but eventually the guy with the little mustache turns the tables on him and kills him. Other guys walk over crusted fucking lava and fall into that. There's all kinds of shit blowing up on fire and stuff like that. But it looks like nobody gets the treasure as the fucking island finally sinks back into the ocean and we have to wait another 200 years for a shot at the treasure. It's interesting. The only problem is I don't think there's a good print floating around. The one I had to revisit was on YouTube and was missing like 12 minutes right after the credits. And the thing is grainy, blurry, splicey, whatever. I'm sure there's a better print floating around somewhere, but another one nobody's bothered to release, and it's kind of a lost film. It was also under another title, The Beast of Whatever, but It's interesting. I thought I was going to be completely fucking bored, but then you see all this other shit going on, and it's like, it's not a bad little movie. So that's our late night noir for this episode. So until next time, stay safe. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flip side.